Well, well, well. Hello everyone and welcome back to the magical Elsa's
No. Hey,
Cave.
what the fuck? Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. I'm sorry about that commandeering of the microphone this morning. Anyways, we're coming at you live. No, not live, but it sounds better when you say live. From deep inside the forest of Finland, looking outside this igloo right now, actually. And trying to see some northern lights, of which we think that we might saw them last night, but the question still arises. Anyways, spent all yesterday snowboarding and skiing, but you guys don't give a fuck about that. We got to talk about some goddamn Magic and money, which has been mostly boring, mostly sideways. Anyways, just we spoke about from yesterday. I'm not saying that to sound arrogant, but it's just the weekend. I mean, that's really all it is. And I'd like to follow up on that price action because today is the day when things actually might be happening. So we do have CMEs opening in about 12, 15 hours or such. And from there, I would be looking for a few different places to talk to kind of extrapolate from that region, which we'll talk about certainly in this video. Other than that, I want to announce that the Krown trading application is now live. We've pushed a couple of new updates to it, and with each and every passing week, we're going to be adding more and more and more to it. You'll probably get a good idea of what's to come if you look at the tabs on the left-hand side, and of course I should tell you where to get it. It's at app.crowntrading.net. Link is in the description of this video, of course, and it is 100% free. Anyways, other than that, I think it's time to get into some Bitcoin analysis. I will be making this video a little bit on the shorter side because I want to get back out there and enjoy some winter wonderland behind me. Anyways, let's switch the scene up right and over here, and during that time, I'd like to wish you the best of the best, and also the haps of the haps, because why the fuck not, man? Anyways, Bitcoin on the daily right here, just kind of doing what we spoke about, creating that range between the yellow 21 exponential moving average on the daily, right around 8,300 low, and our nice little preliminary resistance, which I believe is on my BitMexican chart at about 8,500-ish region. And what do you know? Where did we just pop up to a few minutes ago? Actually, 8,500 to the fucking T, and selling off there. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say selling off, but backing off there on that first pass. And I would expect this to kind of be par for the course today, as essentially not really too much to be done until we get CMEs opening back up. However, with that said, there are a few things to be aware of right here. Now, first and foremost, the range on the more preliminary timeframes, again, between this about 83, I mean, it's really more like 8250-ish region to the 8500-ish region, still very much solid and offer the same sort of an edge. If we can get any sort of a 4-hour total closing above 8,500, or even, I do feel comfortable with stating this, even if we get a wick above this last prior high right here, which on BitMexico is about 85.15, I would look for extension up to the 86.50, maybe even 8,700 region right in over here, somewhere in this pocket of territory, which we can create another little liquid zone for, as the lower timeframes are starting to show that momentum is once again resulting to the upside, kind of in line with my bias here. As I'm really not, I want to state this again, I'm really not bearish on Bitcoin, especially as long as we're closing dailies above 8,200. I don't really have any reason to be. Consolidating here between, especially the low 8,000s and the upper 8,000s, to me is constructive, especially on the medium timeframes, which can have massive implications, as we spoke about yesterday, into the macro, which we'll talk about perhaps a little bit later on this video. Anyways, a few things going on right here. So while going level by level is still my preferred way of doing this, and we just spoke about the upside, if the downside were to happen with any sort of a 4-hour to close, especially above about 82.50, well, 4 hours is a little more difficult. You know what? No, I wouldn't even say that. I'd say below the 200 exponential moving average on the 4-hour, which is certainly crawling its way up a little bit above 8,100 now. It's about 8,125 on Mexico. As long as we are closing 4-hour deltas above there, I don't really believe that Bitcoin's going to have like a major, massive move to the downside. If Bitcoin were to perhaps do that, which is still very much possible, I would look for a move down to about 7750-ish region. Probably nice bouncy bounce there, and then longer term, I'd look for Bitcoin to come down into this pocket right here. Whereas the upside here is a little bit more delicate, because realistically, you can't really look for that next leap up to the 9,500-ish region as long as we're below, especially the daily 200 simple moving average, which is currently hovering around 8,900, actually coming down quite hard right here. So between 8,950 and 8,900-ish region, as long as we're below there, kind of makes it more difficult to get bullish for that move. However, like I said, consolidating it, especially between the yellow 21 and, well, just anywhere above overhead between there and the daily 200 simple, is more or less constructive behavior. And then over time, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to slowly but surely kind of chug his way upwards and onwards. What we do have going on right now is we are going to see a lot of momentum also start to turn back up as CMEs get closer and closer to the weekly open for 5 I believe it's 5 p.m. Eastern time later tonight is when they're going to open back up, and we do see that 12-hour Stokes once again crossing back up to the upside. Very, 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 very powerful, because these have been more or less, and I really feel dirty saying something like this, but more or less those have gotten it right. Even just blindly trading that has been, well, pretty fucking profitable for the last like year and a half now. And when they're kind of crossing up in this region right here, kind of protecting, more importantly, that critical 8200-ish region on a daily little close, but even just as important to that is the 12-hour golden cross right here, which we got just a few days ago on the 20th of January right here, coming down and testing exactly right on the green 55 exponential moving average, exactly what we spoke about coming into the end of this prior week. I would say that that is indicative that we're at the very least going to get another try to the upside here, probably somewhere around 8,700 sometime early this coming week. So I do think that Bitcoin does have some upside to go here, and again, at the end of the day, I would still go level by level, but if I did have my biases set, my bias is actually to the upside right here. And the more and more airtime that Bitcoin gets, the more and more what's the word that I'm looking for? Not bifurcation, but divergence, yes, between these two moving averages is going to occur. And, just think of it kind of like as a MACD. It's, a MACD is quite literally a moving average convergence divergence indicator. That's all it is, man. That's why I don't really use a MACD. I just use exponentials, because they're going to tell you, similar things, and you get a lot more creative with exponentials, because you can program them, exactly how you want. Anyways, the efficacy of this cross over time has been pretty damn good. Going back to the genesis of Bitcoin, very rarely do we get fake outs on this one. In fact, the last golden cross that we got took us all the way from here, from the breakout of 4,000 to 14,000. Then death cross right here, taking us from 10,000 down to 6,500. Before that, in 2018, it was a death cross the whole way through as soon as January hit, and that again took us all the way from about 5-digit deep in the 5-digit Bitcoin to $4,000, or sorry, 3,100 low during this run right on over here. Got golden crossed in October 2015 at about $250, led us all the way up to 20,000. Pretty fucking good. And there were a couple one-offs here, a couple fake outs in 2014, 2015, which I think is important to talk about, because even with these fake outs, which didn't really produce the same sort of results as we were looking at in the more current years, we do see that even from the signals given to the next sort of local high, pretty nice moves here. This was about a 21% move from signal given to next high. Same thing with this guy right in over here, or this one a little bit better actually, about 25% from signal given to next high. And as it is right now, even if this one was going to turn into a fake out signal, so far from signal given to next high would have been about a little bit less than 4%. So I do think that we probably get another try to the upside here, and probably are going to test into the upper 8,000s early this week. And then after that, game begins once again. As long as the daily's closing below the 200 simple, it makes it difficult to get bullish for the next move up into the mid 9,000s. As long as daily's closing above the 21 exponential moving average, which is essentially at that 8,200-ish level, not necessarily looking for that move back down below 8,000. So right now is kind of a critical time, because not only is the golden cross on the 12-hour starting to potentially gain some momentum, momentum also is turning back up. 12-hour RSI is rejecting the bearish control zone, which I like as well. But that's also going to have massive implications into the daily for Bitcoin right here. As you can see, if Bitcoin can essentially just protect this 8,200-ish level, which by the way is exactly where that purple 200 exponential moving average is, we will get the golden cross on the daily, which has much better implications and results for the past trading history of Bitcoin, in fact. So looking at this right now, that is why I've been saying this 8,200-ish level has been incredibly critical. It was very likely that we came back down and tested it. We got that. Now's the thing that I've been speaking about all last week. We got all the moves, and again, I'm not saying this to sound arrogant. I'm not saying this to be like, I told you, I knew it was going to happen. Like, that's bullshit. I don't. That means nothing. The only thing that matters is if you can trade these moves. But what happens now, as far as the greater implications of Bitcoin's price action in the future, is how this reaction from this critical level holds. If the bounce fails to essentially get back above essentially back above 8,700 in this next week or so, I would probably be looking at this as as a failed attempt, and we likely would just peter out and come back down and eventually crush that critical 8,200-ish level and find ourselves somewhere down around 7,750, and probably even lower than that over time. I'd say like 7,200, probably another nice potential bottoming area for a more medium-term bounce once again. Anyways, as it stands right now, the daily is a little bit more in limbo. We do see that daily Stokes are still coming down here. Now they are going to be testing the neutral zone today, and typically you do see a little bit of counter trend pressure around that region. That is kind of where we turned around last time, to be fair. But other than that, is there anything obvious on this chart right now? We do see that daily RSI is floating around, kind of testing around the neutral zone. I don't really have a strong opinion on this one either. But what I do have a strong opinion on is historical volatility percentile on the daily, which with these settings, which is 10-100, by the way, for a lot of the people asking, gets the daily very, very well. And we are very fucking low right now. We are, to put in perspective, we are lower on historical volatility percentile than what we saw basically in 1st of January, before this nice move to the upside, this move from $7,000 up to $9,000 essentially. We're kind of in that same sort of territory. We're obviously not lower, but we're kind of within the same bounds of that. Before that, the time that we were kind of comparatively this low was back on this region right here, middle of September, before the massive droop from 10,000 down to, what do you want to call it, like low 7,000. Before that, what do we see? We were comparatively low as well, coming out of the last bear market to bull market flip right here in March of 2019. And before that, the infamous drop from 6,000 to 3,000 in November. So typically when historical volatility percentile is this low on the daily, we are looking at a multi-$1,000 move, or at least a big move, so to speak. And in this case right here, I would say that this is probably going to give us the momentum to either a break clean of 9,000, which would essentially be above the daily 200 simple moving average, which was likely going to net us back up, or give us a free ride back up to the last prior high right here, right around about 9,500 on the weekly, which can change around the macro. That's when I get macro bullish once again, because I need to see an uptrend on a weekly. I need to see confirmed reversal. Doesn't mean that it can't happen. Just need to actually have that in. And by the same token, it would also give us the perceived expansion, the perceived momentum to actually break below this critical 8,200 support right here, if we are going to take the southern road, and probably net us somewhere down around the low 7,000s overall. So we are at a pivotal point this coming week, and I do think that we are going to see some pretty nice price action precipitated upon this in the next 10 to 14 days or something like that. We probably should see a nice move. Anyways, speaking of that, I do want to go back down to the lower time frames. Put back on, well, do I want to put back on anything? Yeah, we can put back on all these major movement averages actually right here. Why not? Why not, man? And there we go. And there's another few interesting things that I want to talk about right here. So I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this as a falling wedge. And I have a few things to say about that. I really dislike falling wedges because they typically don't work out. But what I can say about this one is that people are drawing it like this, right? And they're going to tell you that it's already broken to the upside. This is such a fucking classic play that I've seen, especially in Bitcoin land, not as much in other assets, but this more aggressive downwards trend line right here typically is not going to be how it actually formulates. If it is going to operate as one, which to be fair, it actually is, if you are going to look at it as one, it kind of is right here. I mean, you do have the volume signature that is consistent with this, and it would imply a break date. Oops, break date somewhere around here. So actually this would be Monday, late Monday, maybe early Tuesday for myself here in Finland. So that would be late Monday for those of you in the Western Hemisphere. And what it's most likely going to operate as, and I'm doing some very bad technical analysis here, but something like this is what I'd imagine it's going to have. You're probably going to see that initial burst up, especially if this 8,500 resistance breaks to the upside, and so you'll probably see a nice move somewhere up into this blue box territory here, and then it'll form out a little bit more, and then this will be the critical point of pleasure if you want to be bullish above about 87.50. But of course, this is very low time frame bullshit, and I would say that to simplify this would be much more reasonable, at least for myself as a trader. This is kind of more for the Twitter mafia over there, the crypto Twitter mafia, if you want to call it that, as looking at this right here, it would suggest that we're not necessarily that mature just yet, or sorry, we have a little bit more to go, so maybe something a little bit more like this. So that'd be a little bit more, something like this would actually look a little bit more right, and kind of imply the same sort of break date. And again, going level by level, I think is just the easy way of doing this. But if I was going to kind of chart it like this, which I'm sure plenty of people are already, it would actually imply a move. And again, I am deliberately drawing this not in the way that I think most people are with going from like body to body, or even wick to wick in this case. It doesn't really matter. It's going to be a little bit higher just because you're probably going to get a rejection somewhere in this region right here, and then you'll get the real potential push. And if that does happen, it would actually imply a target all the way up here to about 9100, our prior high-ish region, which would have implications with forcing Bitcoin back above the 200 simple on the daily, which to me is a lot more important. And if that does happen, again, any sort of a closure above this area right here, I would look for extension into like the 9500-ish region, give or take, over the course of the next whatever it is. As it stands right now, Bitcoin kind of backing off that 8500 resistance pretty damn heftily right here. So that is a whoa, hey, a little bit too intensely right there. Uh-oh, that's not looking good right there. Actually, that's not looking good at all right there. Nasty. Anyways, I'm gonna back off from saying anything like too specific here, just because realistically the lower time frames I think are going to be more of a distraction than anything. The higher time frames are very conclusive. 8200 to the downside and like 8900 to the upside for the next sort of medium term move. And then anything other than that, I would just be treating level by level. This falling wedge here that I was kind of barking off of, not the biggest deal to me. I think that it's just more relevant to just easier realistically to go level by level here. So next level to the upside, 8500. I'd look for a move up here towards 8650 to 87. And if that gets taken out to the upside, I'd look for a full-on test of 8950, and that would actually put us above the daily 200 simple. So which we should also keep in mind that CMEs did close out the week at a little bit below, $5 below 8,500, and I do like this close on CMEs actually here. Not only did we have a very good reaction off that 8,200 support as we spoke about, but also the yellow 20 exponential moving average on the daily, so I like that as well. And actually, funnily enough, man, the daily CME is just a much easier chart here. 200 exponential moving average to the downside, 200 simple moving average to the upside. Just cut and dry right there, and as long as kind of awesome in between there, just a nice healthy consolidation, break down below, and this is going to likely fall apart down to 7800, 7750-ish region. For right now, as we do await for CMEs to open, I think that it is relevant to say that as long as this 8200 support holds, we're actually a lot closer to getting a golden cross on CMEs between, again, the green and the purple, the 55 and the 200 right there, which again, I know that more often than not people are not going to be using the 55. They'll use the 50, and they'll probably use simples as well, but it's going to be about the same thing. And exponentials, in my experience, certainly hold a lot more weight. Anyways, looking at momentum oscillators here, it is a little bit more of a nastier picture, to be fair. We do see that CME Stokes still kind of coming down, and they do have a nice trend line forming right here, but that would suggest that we do have a nice down move. And if we do have a nice down move, bringing us down around the edge of the bullish control zone somewhere in this region, that would suggest that we might actually even have enough momentum to break that critical 8200-ish level, at which point I would expect to see a little bit of a flooding of price action. So difficult area right here. Until we actually get CMEs open back up, because I'd imagine spot's just going to kind of float around and frustrate those who are trying to get into trades a little bit too early. As usual, weekend price action, mostly in a range, and mostly just testing both sides of the range. And we just tested resistance, so let's go test some support now. Anyways, let me just make sure that I'm actually recording. I am. Holy shit, it's already been almost 20 minutes. Jesus Christ, man. I told myself I'd make this video a little bit faster, but perhaps I can do a little bit more here. Anyways, let's go check out the 2-day. 2-day, not really giving us too much here. Same sort of areas implied. I should say that 2-day momentum oscillators are not looking good. They are certainly suggesting downside right here. 2-day Stokes coming down. 2-day RSI doing the same thing, actually losing the exponential along the way. Don't like that. 3-day, same sort of thing, essentially. See 3-day Stokes. Very tired. 3-day historical volatility percentile is absolutely crushed as well. So we are going to be looking at a pretty nice move from this price point. But I'm curious, while the higher time frames are really showing that this can happen, probably sometime this week, let's go down to the lower time frames historical volatility percentile and see if that is likely to happen, sooner rather than later, as I would expect this to be quite low as well. And we do see that the 4-hour is very, 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 very low. But can it get lower? Yes, it can. So maybe somewhere around 27th, 28th of January, which is Monday, Tuesday of this coming week. So I would kind of stick with what I'm saying. Monday, Tuesday is about the time I'd be looking for a break of the range, and to the downside, we're obviously a lot closer to initiating the downside here, but I wouldn't take that trade until it actually does happen. Of course, it's not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, but again, 8200 is that critical point. Except on a 4-hour closure, I'd probably want to see like 8100 just to be a little more conservative on this one. I don't like using lower time frames to judge bigger pieces of price action. 3-hour, same sort of thing. coming down all the way. But I should mention here on the 3-hour jewel, we actually are kind of lining up potentially for a buy signal. Well, are we? Nah, it's gonna bounce around. No, we're not. The 4 hours not even there. What about CMEs? CMEs showing it? If it's on CMEs, then it actually likely does work out. No, we're not seeing the same thing on CMEs. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's not gonna work out. Well, I've already kind of seen a little bit of a move from there, from about 82.50 to 85, $150 move. Fair enough, good enough. Anyways, I don't think it's anything more than that. 2-hour historical volatility percentile, extremely low, so the very low time frame is going to be even lower than that. And yes, indeed. So all of this is suggesting that probably sometime around mid-Monday, late Monday, we probably do see a move. High probability of that. Speaking of probabilities, let's go check out the expected moves chart and see if this has collapsed on itself at all. And look at this. As Bitcoin goes sideways here, just as we spoke about, that does kind of air the probabilities or boost them a little bit more in the odds of the bulls' favor. This is why I've been saying sideways within this region without breaking below 8,200 is constructive and is more or less good for the bulls here. Anyways, we do see that the first standard deviation is coming in right. It's actually still a little bit below 8,200. It's at 81.50 right now, so it's still, it's still within the cards that we do break to the downside today and still like relatively reasonable. By the same token, to the upside, we got 86.50-ish region right here, which obviously would be well above our more preliminary resistance for the very short-term range, but that doesn't offer up all that much. In fact, you'll notice that if we break above 8,500 or even just tick back above 85.15, where is 86.50? It's actually the lower bound of this blue box territory right here. So it would be in accordance with that next sort of targeted region from the from the edge of the top side of the first deviation there. So good that it does match up with things, but probably suggests as well that we're going to see another day of likely sideways. More importantly, below 8,200, it actually is probably like a 20%, because technically 8,200 is within the bounds of that. So if I had to guess, it's like a bad mental math here, but maybe like 20% chance that we actually do break below 8,200 today, which would obviously be that critical area where the daily trend really starts to fall apart. We get a confirmed downtrend once again on the daily, and the weekly downtrend, well, it's essentially confirmed once again. To the upside, a little more difficult. Between the second and third standard deviation is where that 8,900 critical region. Actually, the second standard deviation is showing about 8,900, so we can just take it right there. So less than a 2.5% chance that we do break to the upside today above that critical point. So I don't think that we're seeing a break at the range today. If anything, it would suggest actually to the downside, which perhaps the boo laws do not want to hear. Anyways, we should go over to the weekly here and start to close out this video because, like I said, I don't want to make it too much more longer. But weekly momentum also is still pointed north, still looking okay. We are getting above the same area that we saw in before September breakdown right here. Not confirmed just yet, but I need to see another week essentially closing above there, and then it will be, and that would be in my opinion a confirmed change of behavior and likely a line for another move back up into the mid 9,000s. By the same token, we do see weekly RSI coming back down, testing around the exponential most likely, which is not a death sense, but more importantly to me, we are kind of at a pivotal moment here. We have rejected from this blue box territory around the 55 to 56 marker on the weekly RSI, which has accurately gotten our bullish and bearish markets in the past. Anytime that Bitcoin's been above this on a weekly closing schedule, we've been in an uptrend, or Bitcoins have been in an uptrend, like a long-term uptrend. By the same token, to the downside, long-term downtrend, so we're above on this whole run right over here. We're below on this whole run right on over here. Above right on over this side right on over here. And actually, like the first indication of that emerging all the way to 2018, and then down all the way through from January over to essentially January of the next year, and then back above right and over here on this massive run, and then back below on this crack below 10,000. So this has been pretty damn consistent with price action, and actually is a little bit more of an earlier indication than actually waiting for a legitimate reversal on the weekly trend, which in this case we need a higher high and a higher low to actually get to confirm an uptrend here. To get a higher high, we need to get back above about 9,500. So still got a lot of work to do, to be fair. But technically the RSI should tell you beforehand, and even that would be a little bit further away. So as it stands right now, going to be a little bit more of a waiting game. I don't think that we get clarity on the situation until at the earliest, like Monday, Tuesday, is when things look like they want to start rolling once again. And like I said, I'd probably just be looking for sideways still within this region right here between about 82.50 and 85 until we get CMEs opening back up for the week. In fact, we just went and tested resistance, so probably going to go test some support, maybe back down to like 8,300-ish region, 8250-ish region down here. But I would probably not be looking for a break at the very least until Monday. Other than that, what else should we talk about? Have we kind of hit everything? Not really. Didn't even talk about anything on the long terms. I suppose the last thing that I'll kind of mention here, because I do want to start to wrap up this video, so it's already a little bit longer than I anticipated. But looking at the monthly for a second, we do see, more importantly, if you want to make this game a little bit easier on yourself, that 10 simple, that red 10 simple on the monthly right here, likely going to be very indicative of where the greater trend is going longer term. So if Bitcoin ends this next monthly, which is ending on Friday, this coming Friday, above the 10 simple, which is about 8480, or let's just call it 8500 for ease of conversation, which we're about $100 away from right now. If it does end above there, I would look for that next push into the 9500 region, and Bitcoin probably most likely creates an uptrend on the weekly, and we'll see a push back into the 5 digits, in like over February, March region. By the same token, if Bitcoin does get rejected by the 10 simple and end below about 8,500, or especially even below 8,200, I would look for another test of the yellow 20-minute exponential moving average right here. That's a critical thing, though. While I do think that Bitcoin would bounce off the yellow 20-minute exponential moving average, if we do get any sort of a closure below, then all the bears' wet dreams of targeting a move down into the mid to low 5,000s are going to be very much realized. And momentum oscillators on the monthly right here are actually not the picture perfect. We do see that monthly Stokes are, well, they're actually not terrible. Got rejection from the bullish control zone, but if they turned around right here, that'd be completely fine. You do see that they're starting to lose momentum, so we really need to wait until the actual close for that. Monthly RSI is more or less neutral, if anything. So I don't really have anything to make out of that. Monthly Joule is neutral as neutral gets. So not really getting too much off that right now. So again, I have to wait for closure on this one. Realistically, the things that are most actionable are actually in the lower time frames right now, and I'll start to wrap it up with that. Any sort of a move back above 85.15 or 4-hour or even a 2-hour to close above 8,500, I would look for extension to 86.50 to 8,700 right here, and probably back off there, and then try again higher sometime later this week. By the same token, any sort of a move down below, not just a move down below, but especially a higher time frame close below 8,200 right here. 12-hour daily is what that means. Then I'd look for a quick move down to about 7750, 7800, which region, probably bounce there, and then continuation coming into the rest of the week. And to that point, we should also talk about GBTC, which did essentially do that, actually. GBTC came all the way down to the January 9th lows, which were basically right around here at around that 7700-ish region, akin to. So, and then bounced pretty damn heavily off that, basically back up to what would be about 8,000 or 80 or 8,200-ish region. So it's GBTC leading once again to the downside. I'm really holding off on saying anything conclusive about that. For me, I'm just playing ranges right now. And waiting for that next sort of critical level to be hit. And with that said, I'd like to wish you a happy and healthy end of your Sunday, or beginning of your Sunday, or whatever the fuck time it is on your Sunday, or whatever world you're in, or whatever sun you're revolving around. And I'll be signing off now. I'm going to be traveling a little bit later today, so I want to remind myself to say that if you've been trying to contact me on Discord, please understand I am not at my main battle station, so I am going to have difficulty getting back to you until I get back home in Helsinki, which will be very late tonight. So probably realistically tomorrow morning is when I'll get back to dealing with everything on Discord and emails and whatnot. But I'll do my best to check in as the interwebs permit. And with that said, take care, and until next time.